How are you? I do hope this finds you well. I'm Bruce Williams. Welcome. Welcome to my world as we talk about us, you and me together, the good, the bad, and the difficult. And of course the difficult, this begins my last week doing the program. And golly, it's just, it's difficult. That's the only way to describe it. But you guys have been so incredibly super. I mean, just the constant emails and all but one or two extremely complimentary. There was a blurb on one of them, which these are the kinds I laugh at. It said, "I'm glad to see him go. I'm a college student," something of that kind, "and I have to work on a board, and I want something more lively and today." Well, I kind of anticipate that sort of a compliment from a college kid, and mercifully, he'll probably grow up one day and maybe see things a little differently. But he gave me a chuckle. Lots of chuckles, lots of laughs, and just one or two tears along the way. Made a couple of decisions, nothing earth-shattering. And on Thursday, I have been making little notes to myself about things that I've talked about over the last 35 years. And stuff that's happened to me, stuff because of the program, and I'm just going to kind of share some of those things with you for the last time. I probably will take a phone call or two, but for the most part, I just sort of want to reminisce. A lot of you have asked me if I would do something similar to that. And then Friday, I'm not sure how much we can do, to be perfectly frank with you. We do have the original program that I did 35 years ago, but the quality is such that we may or may not be able to play that. Although I did dig out some tapes. I found, just by serendipity again, the last show that I did at WMCA in New York in October of 1981. Just that's one that kind of, frankly, I'd called and had my good friend Steve Belly go into the house, my home in New Jersey, my second home. I live in Florida, but there are a whole bunch of tapes up there. I said, shoot me a few if you can. And we found this one, and I called my son Michael, and I said, "Michael, you won't remember this, but there was a guy at WMCA," and I said, "You met him, we went out to dinner with him." And he said, "Jonathan King." I said, "My God, you were, let me see, 30 years ago, whatever it is?" Well, you were in your teens, I guess, now I think about it. But how would you remember that? And he said, "Well, Jonathan King was the guy that wrote Everybody's Going to the Moon." And, of course, that was apparently a very, very famous rock song, which pretty much catapulted him to fame and a great deal of fortune. And he also owned the Rocky Horror Show. I didn't know anybody owned that, but he owned the Rocky Horror Show. And I was sitting there just chattering away that day with Bert Knapp, who was a newsman, a World War II vet and all that stuff. And I did look him up today, and he passed away a good many years ago. And Barry Gray dropped in to say goodbye. And, of course, Barry is no longer with us. And I didn't listen to much more, so there may be some other guys on there. And this is the kind of stuff that I'm going to share with you. Now, I'll give you a little bit of a tease. I was doing a commercial, and I'm trying to think now of the name of the company because they are still advertising. I had it all on my mind all day today. They are still advertising on NBC television, and David Lerner. They are an investment firm, and they were advertising then on radio, and they are still, I'm sure, the original Mr. Lerner is no longer, well, maybe he is there. It doesn't really matter. But I'm doing this commercial, and I'm saying, you know, if you're sick and tired of having the government take all of your money, I got a good investment for you, which is totally tax-free. And I did a commercial for triple exempt. That meant in New York City, no federal, state, or city taxes. Nothing, zero. Got to keep it all. You know what tax-free bonds are, right? Now, this is October of 1981. But then I was listening. My wife was good enough to pull some of this stuff out and drop it into the recorder instead of the tape player and so forth. And then I say, in this commercial, you will earn between, are you ready for this? 14 to 16%. 14 to 16%. Totally tax-free. Can you imagine that's because of Mr. Carter and that hyperinflation that he let loose on our country? 14 to 16%. And I was discussing this with my very close, I think him as a son, frankly, Steve Belly, also my partner in some businesses. But in any event, I said to Steve, can you believe this? He says, do you remember Dan Calabria? I said, where are you pulling these names up from over 25, almost 30 years ago? Dan Calabria was the president of the Lexington Money Market Trust. And I did commercials for them for a long time. And actually, most of their business, as I remember Dan telling me many years ago, I think he's in Florida. And I certainly hope he's still with us. But then he said, Steve said, well, you got me into that. I didn't have much money then, don't have much now, wise guy. 18%. 18%. You got money market funds today playing 0.06%. That's 6/100ths of 1%. Take you 20 years, or a little less than that, to get a 1% return on your money. And in 1981, in that period of time, you were getting 18% for your money. And, of course, I was constantly getting telephone calls from people who had their money in savings accounts. I'm saying, what's wrong with you? You're losing your shirt. That lousy 5.5% passbook savings, you run to the bank. If you can't find your sneakers, put on your slippers. Go down to the bank, get the money out. Today, 5.5% would look princely, wouldn't it? Well, on the other hand, though, the inflation is pretty much under control. But you see, if you were strictly, at that time, a seasoned citizen, for the most part, you would be in tall cotton because you weren't taking any money out for a mortgage. Chances are you weren't buying a car every other day. In other words, you weren't borrowing money. Yeah, the price of eggs and stuff was up, but you could eat a little selectively. And with that hyperinflation, which was bad for the world, bad for the country, but if you were strictly a saver, and of course I was a lot younger and had young children at the time, and I was not, naturally. My marvelous sense of timing has me at a point where, yeah, I am investing and saving a little money when the interest rates are right in the toilet. But here I am pitching my little heart out for a savings vehicle totally tax-free, 14 to 16%. And if you just had some cash sitting around, 18%. Just to give you but see, you do the percentages in your head, I'm sure you can. But if you had $1 million, it would bring you in $180,000 a year. Today, that same $1 million, well, let me see, 1% would be 10,000, And quarter of 1% would be 1,250. Is that right? No, that's not right, is it? Quarter of 1%. I'm failing here. 1% is 10,000. Yeah, 2,500 by a quarter. So that would give you $12,500 interest on if you bought a CD or a bunch of them for $1 million. $12,500 today. 1981. $180,000. What a difference. Well, then I was listening to, we discussed very briefly who was going to win the World Series and all that kind of stuff. And then when you think about that, when you come right down to it, who cares? I mean, we get all upset or titillated by the Olympics and how many gold medals our country won. And even I watched the hockey game yesterday. I was hoping to see our guys win, and the dramatic tying it up with under a minute to play, that was certainly a thrill. But on the other hand, with all the stuff happening in this world, who wins, who skates more quickly, who comes down a pipe on a snowboard, or goes up in the air for 3.5 seconds for doing twists and turns on skis. It's entertaining and it's interesting, and certainly you have to admire the incredible amount of effort that these athletes put forward. I mean, I'm sitting, I see a little differently. Here goes somebody falling down, and I'm thinking 4 years or more of preparation and one little tick, like with the speed skating where the Korean just nicked somebody, and so they were disqualified. Those microseconds kind of make me sad. That's part of the game. I'm Bruce Williams. Should you wish to give us a shout, the number 877-287-4964. 877-287-4964. If there is something happening in your life where a little different slant, a different perspective might have some value, why not try me? All you can do is I can tell you I don't know, which is going to happen from time to time, but that's okay too. If you'd prefer, you can reach me on the email at askbruce@brucewilliams.com. Ask Bruce at brucewilliams.com. Many of you have asked if our website will be maintained. Yes, for the foreseeable future, the website will be there with updates and additions and the rest of that, and things like the pork roll will be available, and as will the flowers, and there will be links to all of these sorts of things. So that goes on, and I will leave messages on there for a time. The plans are very indefinite. I don't choose to do something hastily, and making this decision was anything but a hasty decision. But I don't choose to make a hasty decision of one way or another and then repent in leisure. Well, what I've sort of decided to do, and I'm not sort of decided, what I'm going to do, as many of you will be going on a cruise with us in 2.5 weeks. 2 weeks from this Saturday we meet in the hotel. And then we have a week on the ship, and we get home on, I believe it's, oh boy, what week is the weekend? But what's the week before Christmas? Palm Sunday. We get back on Palm Sunday. I may or may not have to make a trip right away when I get back, and then I will have had time to cogitate. Candidly, I'll be talking to a bunch of you on a cruise. I'm interested in opinions. and then I'm going to decide what direction I may be heading in or whatever. Take a look at a couple of offers and see where we go from there. That's about where it goes to. So this week, I will give you the best I got, which a lot of people will argue about, but I'll give you the best I got, and I will look forward to enjoying it. On Thursday, doing a lot of reminiscing, and Friday, playing a couple of shows that we did a million years ago. And Saturday morning, get up, probably with a tear or two in my eye. Providence, Rhode Island. Hello there.
Hello there, Bruce. This is Chuck from North Providence.
Yes, Chuck. Glad to have you with me.
So much to say, so little time.
Yes, indeed.
First of all, you've never given anything but the best, my friend. And that's a fact.
That's appreciated.
And I want to let you know that I'm visually impaired, but there are many people that have no vision that think of you as a very close friend. And one of them was my sister, who has passed away this past year, excuse me. You gave her many hours of pleasure and made many a lonely night much more tolerable with your gift of conversation information.
Well, that's very generous of you, and I appreciate that.
And also, I'm one of the lucky people that will be joining you on the cruise. I cannot wait, I'll tell you.
Okay.
And I want to say how appreciative I am to your wonderful staff, Denise and Beth, who have been more than kind to me in helping with everything from air reservations to the ship and everything else, and insurance. It's been a delight. They didn't do it because they had to do it. You could tell they wanted to do it. They were genuinely interested and invested in it, and I am forever grateful for that kind of an attitude, which comes from a very good employer, obviously.
Well, I don't think I have much to do with it, but you will, as you, I'm sure, know, both of those ladies are going to be going on the cruise.
So I understand. I can't wait to meet them.
So you'll get an opportunity to meet them. Well, thank you for your kind words, my friend, and I will look forward to seeing you in a little over 2 weeks. I am looking forward to this. I'm going to be a little tired, and I said to Susan tonight, I don't know what the hell is wrong with me, but I am really physically beat. I mean, I'm not doing anything any more than I ordinarily do physically. Try to ride the bike and all that kind of good stuff. And I do skip a day here and there. But on balance, I'm trying to do the exercises, and I get about the same amount of sleep. And as I came up tonight, I said, I made some comment about it. And she said, psychologically, I suspect that your body is looking for some relief. I really hadn't considered that. And that may very well be the case. That this sort of a thing, I mean, knocking off after 35 years is not something one does every day. And there is a lot of, not only the actual preparation, but there's the mental preparation and all of this involved. Oh, I will do my very best not to be testier. You notice I didn't say not to be testy, because I can be testy, but not to be any more testy than I would normally be. And hopefully we will share a week that we both will remember for some period of time. I sure hope so. I'm Bruce Williams. If you would like to join us, we can make it easy. 877-287-4964. Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Hello there.
Hi, Bruce. I am delighted to get in touch with you. I simply want to say how much I've enjoyed listening to you, even though I am an arch-liberal. And the reason is that you are the only intelligent conservative talk show host on radio.
A lot of people would disagree with that.
Well, the rest are a pack of wackos. I mean, I don't always agree with you, but you never rant, you never rave. You always show intelligence and consideration. And losing you, we're not going to have anybody left, because I'll bet you they're going to fill it in with another one of these idiots. and there we will be.
No say, control, editorial comment, or anything else. With the independent stations are going to put on whoever they feel is in their the public's best interest.
Well, the one that I listen to here in Lebanon doesn't have anything else except you. They're all, oh goodness, I don't even listen, of course, except when you're on.
Oh, I appreciate that. You ought to listen, though. You know, let's just you say that you're progressive, liberal, or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Well, the thing to do, you got to know what the quote, and I use this word maybe advisedly, but you got to know what the enemy is up to.
Yeah, I realize that.
When
And
there were
do.
a couple of, I thought, pretty decent liberal type shows. There aren't many, and that's a shame. You saw the last one, the Liberal Network went down the toilet. They went bankrupt.
Yeah.
And what does that tell you? It tells you that their talent is something that a lot of people don't want to listen to.
I know, and they don't make any money.
Well, that's because they don't have people that somebody wants to listen to.
I know. It's
you know,
real sad.
if I ever could have found, when I was a little more involved, a funny liberal, I would have hocked my family jewels to put them on a radio.
I see what you mean.
Because they're just not out there. Look at this idiot. That's not a nice thing to say. I can't think of his name. The guy that got elected senator out in Minnesota.
Yeah.
You know, he was a writer, comic writer for Saturday Night Live, I believe.
Yeah.
And then he had his own talk show, which was one of the worst that anybody ever put on the air. I've only met him once, and that was probably once too many times. No sense of humor, you know, very dour, and that is not what people are going to listen to there. And what's the lady? Oh my goodness! And she's, I think, well, maybe she's back on again. The one company went broke. Her father ran for vice president about 30 years ago.
Oh, I can't remember.
But you know who I'm talking about.
I think I do.
And she can be interesting. She certainly has a good intellect, and I can listen to her for a time.
Yeah.
But I would tell you, if even now, if I were starting really looking around for something to do, which I may or may not be, a really funny, good sense of humor, outgoing liberal, I still think you could put on the air and make a ton of money.
Yeah. We ought to have Jack Kennedy. He could have done it.
Who?
Jack Kennedy.
Well,
our former president.
But he would have been a little too serious.
Well, I suppose. No,
I mean, this is supposedly an entertainment medium.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And I mean, Jack Kennedy. Well, you look at the current president.
Yeah.
The current president is an excellent speaker. Actually, to be completely candid, because you can't have that in this enterprise, he is a very good speech reader.
Yes.
But you've got to be able to be extemporaneous to last in this enterprise.
Yeah, well, Kennedy, of course, was that.
But Kennedy was, but even there with Kennedy, what was his famous expression that brought him about 2.5 seconds, which is a lifetime to think about an answer? You remember?
No.
Said, let me say this about that.
Oh, yes, of course, yes.
And
you're absolutely right.
And that bought him some think time.
Yeah.
And he said it so naturally and whatever, and he didn't say it as rapidly as did I just now.
Yeah.
But that gave him the time to consider not sticking his foot into his mouth.
Yeah.
And that's a quality, let me tell you, that has its value is limitless.
Well, I'm a rather ancient creature approaching 88, so I have a long memory, and what I miss, though, and I don't miss it in Obama because he is a good speaker, is that we don't have speakers anymore like Roosevelt, Adlai Stevenson.
Communicators is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan was probably the best of the bunch.
He was in there.
But he was But Ronald Reagan was a trained actor with 40 years experience.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what he brought to the craft. Whether you liked him or not is not relevant.
No, not
but the guy was a marvelous communicator.
Yes, he absolutely was.
As was Franklin Roosevelt.
Oh yeah.
He was a communicator. You felt that you knew and you may have hated him, but you felt you knew him or you loved him. So I'm not trying to get into pluses and minuses. I will tell you this, you have a very strong and well-modulated voice for someone of your age, and I congratulate you for that.
Oh, well, I have a number of friends, including my wife, and we don't sound any different than we did when we were 25.
That's very unusual. As someone who has spent a portion of today listening to stuff that I recorded 30, 35 years ago.
Yeah.
It's surprising how much you can sound alike and how different you can sound under different stimulation.
Well,
I got the tapes to prove that to me.
You have an ageless voice, though. I mean, your age is not revealed by your voice. And back when I was a kid in the 30s, I was in a Republican family, so I didn't like Roosevelt then.
And all of your family is spinning in their graves now.
Well, no, my parents began to liberalize, I guess after I did, for some reason.
Oh my, it's infectious. Oh, I got to be careful now. I got to get a handkerchief over my microphone here.
Yeah, right.
Well, I thank you so very, very much for sharing with me, my friend, and I certainly wish you long life and all the good things. And if you find a funny liberal, drop me a note. I put him to work. I really mean that, because there haven't been any. There have been a couple, but that whole liberal radio network has been almost entirely. There are a couple of guys out there that, I can't think of his name, Schultz or whatever it is. He was out of Fargo, North Dakota, and now I think he's doing some kind of a television show out of New York. He was a racing car driver and whatever. And if I got the wrong name, please forgive me. And I used to listen to him once in a while on the satellite radio, very candidly. And I didn't agree with a great many things he had to say, but that's not an issue. I listened to be entertained. And he, in fact, was entertaining. I have an email here. I'm looking at my clock, and I think I just about have enough time to read this to you. And he says, my name is Chris Greeley, and decades ago you started in what at age 77 has become for me a long love of talk radio. I'd even be able to guest host at stations in Bangor and Portland, where I live. While you've been off the air in our market for years, a new station recently started carrying you again. I was thrilled, as I normally can only listen to your past shows online. But then, in fact just now, I heard that you will be leaving the air for good. Bruce, I realize mine is one of countless emails. Still, I hope you might consider reading it on air. I feel like I've actually come to know you over roughly 3 decades I've listened and been a fan. You've motivated, inspired, and guided me, and I am so grateful to you. I wish you the best, and with sadness I say both hello for the first time and goodbye for the last. Thank you, Bruce. Sincerely, State Representative Chris Greeley, in the Maine House of Representatives. Well, Chris, I wish you well in your political career, and I am very, very grateful for your kind words. As you know, I got my feet sort of in just my toes into the pool a million years ago. I did run for state rep and got my ears. I ran for state representative as a sacrificial lamb, because I ran in a district where Republicans were shot on sight customarily. And I did run as a Republican. But on top of all that, my timing was wonderful. I ran when the incumbent governor was a conservative kook who got renominated. And it was the Watergate year, when Mr. Nixon was being pilloried. I mean, I'm not even certain I voted for me. And that was the best thing that ever happened, because then I went into radio. I'm Bruce Williams. Here's a pretty controversial move. I'd be interested in your read. Annapolis, Maryland, it's hard to find a job. And now people are facing another hurdle, credit histories. 60% of employers surveyed some years ago said they ran credit checks. 42% in 2006, 60% today. Employers, they say checks give them valuable information about the applicant's honesty, responsibility, but 16 states from South Carolina to Oregon have proposed outlawing most checks. They say the practice traps people in debt because of their past problems and could keep them from finding work. Wisconsin State Rep Kim Hickson drafted a bill after hearing from an auto mechanic who struggled to find work. The auto mechanic said it started with medical bills that piled up when his now 10-year-old began having seizures as a toddler. First year alone, $25,000 in medical debt. In 4.5 months, he was turned down for at least 8 positions when he had authorized the employer to conduct a credit check. He said one guy told him, if your credit is bad, then you'll steal from me. The representative says what happens is discrimination based on credit history, and his bill would ban it. Under federal law, prospective employers must get written permission from applicants to run a credit check, but advocates say most job applicants do not feel in a position to say no, and they're absolutely right about that. Most of the bills resemble laws in Hawaii and Washington that prevent employers from using credit reports when hiring for most positions. They have exceptions in cases where information could be relevant to the job. Maybe the person is applying to work in a bank or accounts payable office. On a national level, Representative Steve Cohen, a Democrat from Tennessee, introduced a similar bill where it's still bottled up in committee. Now, even though more companies use credit checks, only 13% perform them on all potential hires. A blanket ban could remove a tool employers can use to help them make good hiring decisions. What do you think about that? And I can think of some pretty good arguments in both directions. I can tell you this. 2.5 million years ago, when I first got out of the Air Force, I worked for a company called Retail Credit. Retail Credit. And we did all kinds of checks for prospective employees, including the people they hung out with, where they lived, what kind of a standard of living, and all that kind of stuff. And Retail Credit morphed into the Atlanta company that you're all familiar with, one of the biggest reporting companies in the world. But when I worked there, they were they were nationwide, but the name was Retail Credit, and they also had Retailers Commercial. We got paid $1 a report. To make $20, you had to do 20 reports and type them up each day. I think you can imagine that some of the information was a little sketchy. 877-287-4964, 877-287-4964. In the alternative, ask Bruce at brucewilliams.com. We'll take a little commercial breather, and then you and I will rest and regroup. If you're on the line, don't you dare go away. I'm Bruce Williams. If you'd like to join us, 877-287-4964. We're going to Lima, New York. Hello there.
Hi, Bruce.
Hey.
Long-time listener. Lost track of you for a while. You've given me lots of advice over the years, and I'm about to make a major change here.
What you up to?
I'm going to move into Spain for a couple of years as a Christian missionary to be an IT guy.
What kind of guy?
IT. Computers.
Oh, information technology.
Yes.
Okay, and you're going to do this as a religious missionary?
Yes.
How did you arrange that?
There's an organization, the name's Battelle, and they started in the 70s in Madrid, and have branched out. I'm a graduate of the Teen Challenge program, similar kind of philosophy, and took a vacation with a friend there, and met with the founder of the program, and he offered me a position.
How does the economy in Spain affect what you're going to be doing?
More people that are desperate and despondent, and I'm going to need the help to get off drugs and alcohol and out of the streets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there's a lot more troubles than just drugs and alcohol in Spain, as I'm sure you know.
Yes, their economy is tanking quicker than ours.
Not even comparable. Then you have the Basque thing. That's another problem in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
So what can I do for you, if anything?
What's the most economical way to get money from the States into my hands in Spain?
Bank wire.
Bank wire?
Sure. You get a bank. You have make your connection now with a bank in where's the money going to come from in this country, in our country?
It will originate here in Lima. We're a suburb of Rochester.
Then you go talk to some. You're going to have a bank account in Lima, right?
Yes.
And you go down and you talk to somebody and I don't mean a teller either. And you ask or do they have a correspondent bank in Spain, and then do they have one? You're going into Madrid or Barcelona or where?
Madrid.
Well, then that should be a cinch. They will have a correspondent bank in Madrid where they can get a wire to you the same day.
Okay.
That's the cleanest, and for a whole lot of other reasons, because of money laundering and terrorism and all that sort of stuff, one of the least opaque ways of transferring money is by bank wire.
Okay.
And but as a consequence, because it is the least opaque, it's the least likely that a terrorist is going to start shooting much money around by bank wire. So it doesn't attract a lot of attention. Now, I don't think the amounts of money that you're going to have would be attracting much attention either.
Very true.
But and you will pay you're going to have to pay a commission for the change of Spain is on a euro, right?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, you'll have to pay for the conversion from dollars to euros.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to take a beating right now. I think the euro is about $1.36. But that's another program. But that's the easy way. But establish the relationship now, and then when you get to Madrid, you establish a banking relationship with a correspondent bank ahead of time. You're going to introduce yourself and so on, and it's a piece of cake. Have a wonderful experience. I'm Bruce Williams. This message is for you. I hope it finds you well. I'm Bruce Williams. Welcome. Welcome to my world. We talk about us, you and me, the world around us, the good, the perplexing, the profound, and the amusing. And there are many other adjectives we can use to describe what we talk about. It's almost an endless list. But if we had to break it down to one word, we'd talk about life. Sure. Life as we are experiencing it, life as we are living it. Now, there are things in this life sometimes, first of all, bad things happen to good people. That's just an unfortunate part of our lives. Bad things, nasty things, tragic things happen to good people. I have no explanation for that. I'm not going to start to get into theology here. But that's a fact. But we learned and we try to make adjustments for those things. Successfully sometimes and unhappily not successfully otherwise. There are some crazies out there. They're just out there. People that they have all these security things at schools, which I guess you got to have, but almost without exception, when you have a tragedy at a school, the tragedy has its genesis with someone who has a legal right to be there. What do you do about that? But if there's something happening in your life, if I can be of some service to you, we still got the rest of this week to share together, and I'd like to make that as productive as is possible. Our telephone number is 877-287-4964, 877-287-4964. If you prefer emailing me, ask Bruce at brucewilliams.com. It's up and away to Hartford, Wisconsin. Hello there.
Good evening, Bruce. How are you?
I am just fine. Thank you very much.
I have two short questions for you. Being that it's a census year, and I know we're going to be getting our forms in the mail pretty soon, what are we really required to fill out on the form? They ask a lot more than I'd like to give.
Just about everything. I believe if you get the long form, you got to give what is it that you're uncomfortable with? Because I've seen most of the questions, reported. Well, I don't find anything on there that I'm going to get too terribly hyper.
You don't think so?
I'm asking you. Maybe you're seeing something I don't.
Well, I did not get my form yet, in all honesty, and normally I pretty much set with just wanting to give my name and how many people live in our household. I don't know what other information. Sometimes they ask, like, when do you go to work? When do you come home?
Well, you see, they have the short and the long form, and in order for the government to collect statistics, which are useful, somebody's got to answer the questions. Now, they don't need it from everybody. Maybe it's 1 in 10. I don't know what the PC is.
Sure.
But they say that it's not identified, and as screwed up as our government is, if they told me they were keeping track of all the information, I'd be more suspicious.
You know what? I think you've got something there. So I guess I won't worry about it, fill it out, put it back in the mail, and move on.
There are so many other things that we can together worry about.
Exactly.
That's just not going to be. It's not going to be.
I won't let that be
part of my.
list.
A million years ago, I used to march on the Census Bureau's lawn.
You did?
Honest to God. Not because I wanted to, but when I was stationed in the Washington D.C. area, actually I was living in Maryland and working in Virginia, as it worked out. But we were right next door to the Census Bureau.
Really?
And in Suitland, Maryland. And I forgot, but it's like a bad dream now. But every once in a while you had to go out there and squadron and flight and the rest of it and wander around and march up and down. But it was right at the Census Bureau, just off of Suitland Parkway. I don't know if it's still there or not.
And, that definitely, there's not much you haven't done, that's for sure. And another quick question. Could you explain to me again the rule of 78?
Yeah, what would you like to know? Just a matter
I forgot how to calculate it.
It's real simple. You just divide the interest, whatever it happens to be, let's say it's 1%.
Okay.
Into 78, how many times would that go? 78 times. 78. That's why I chose it, right?
Yes, 78 times, yes.
Okay, so it would take, at 1%, it would take 78 years for your money to double.
Okay, I knew it was simple, but I just could not think of it this weekend.
Well, that's always the case. How old are you?
49.
Oh, you're slipping over the edge pretty early there, baby.
That's not good, is it?
I'm
Bruce.
constantly thinking, what the hell? What's somebody's name? Or
that shouldn't be happening to me yet, but it does sometimes. So.
Well, I think it starts happening when you're slipping out of the birth canal.
All right. Well, in that case, then I'm probably right on. And Bruce, if I could just take a minute, I just want to tell you I could never adequately thank you for all you've done for me. But you've impacted my life in just countless ways, and I want to thank you for that.
Well, you're very generous. I am aware, it would be disingenuous to say otherwise. I'm aware that in some measure I've influenced a few lives along the way. And it's interesting to get letters from somebody who gives me far more credit than I'm entitled to receive, but that something that I said triggered something or whatever, and as a consequence the course of their life was altered to the good. And it's nice to know that. And boy, so many of you have been generous with your regular snail mail and more emails, just giving examples of something I might have said on a program. I got a long handwritten letter from a lady today. This is as God is my judge. And it was a Christmas time, and she was upset that things weren't going quite as well as they might have been, or they would like to have it been, or whatever. And she said she was listening to me 3 days before Christmas, and I made a comment, and I think I recall making not quite exactly the comment, but close enough. I know I've made comments close enough. I'm putting this poorly, but anyway, what I said was, if you're unhappy about the way things are going at Christmas, go out and find somebody else who has really got major league big time problems, and help them, and you'll feel a hell of a lot better. It'll put your problems into perspective. And she said that same day on a radio station, a local station, there was a plea by the station to help a family out, and the difficulties are totally without relevancy. And she said she went out, and they had a box store that was open until midnight, and she went out and she bought presents for the 3 children and got some cash for the parents, and finally got their telephone number and drove over to their house at 10 or 11 o'clock day before, or maybe, I don't think it was Christmas Eve, it might have been, doesn't matter. And she gave the kids their presents and something to the parents, and she said her problems sort of disappeared, knowing that someone was so much in more difficulty, and they were so appreciative of her generosity. And she said that's changed my point of view about Christmas ever since. That's pretty neat, when you might have just something on a minor league basis, you triggered that kind of a response. I thank you very, very much, my dear. Yeah, that letter will go into the archives too. It was a very nicely written, handwritten letter. And very often the handwritten letters I put aside and say, somebody decipher this and type it up and I'll read it. But I did read that one today. So if the lady with the red Jeep is listening, I'm very appreciative of what you had to say. Our telephone number, we're going to give it a workout until the end of the week, 877-287-4964. Another email which I thank you for, from a lady, Elsie. She says, thanks for not having a mean-spirited talk show like the majority of talk show hosts seem to have. I'm a conservative, but I refuse to listen to the constant bashing of our president, no matter if it is Bush or Obama. You were able to have your opinions aired without sounding totally disrespectful for the president, and I am grateful. I only wish other talk show hosts would take a lesson from you. I don't know if they realize how easy it is to simply turn off the radio when they come on. And she makes a comment about another host, which I will not share. And she says, good luck in your new endeavors. Well, I am appreciative of that as well. You guys have been so nice in making this transition for me a whole bunch easier. Saturday night, Sue and I, no, that would not be true. I decided, or I asked, or whatever, if Sue would like to go out to dinner, and I suggested there's only one casino in our area. It's an Indian casino, the Hard Rock, which is owned by the Seminoles, I believe. And I said, maybe I'll play a little 21. I don't like to go by myself. It's no fun to play by yourself. And the restaurant's pretty decent. Well, in a moment, I'll tell you about Saturday night and how I believe somebody really ought to take some other folks by the hair and shake them up good. Muscatine, Iowa. Hello there.
Mr. Williams.
Hi.
What am I going to do without you, my friend?
Well, I appreciate that. There'll be lots of other things to do, I'm sure.
Well, I know, but it just won't be the same without you, buddy. I've listened to you on the radio for so many years and on the internet, and it's going to suck without you.
Well, you're very generous.
You're a wonderful man, and I've learned so many things from you throughout the years. And I wish you well in whatever you decide to do, your retirement or whatever. And well,
it will not be that. That much I can assure you.
Oh, really?
Well, as long as I'm physically able, I'll be doing something. Now, it might not be radio.
I hear you.
But I will. The idea of being retired is frightening to me. Really. Of all things, I don't want to become a slug. I do thank you so very much, my friend. I'm Bruce Williams. I was recounting a little experience over the weekend, and it's not profound, but it has a bearing in your thinking about how to run a business. And we decided to go down to the casino. Sue was going, and I'm going to play a little 21. I called, and the earliest restaurant reservation was 10:45. Now, that's a little late for me. When you're in Las Vegas, where you got dozens and dozens of casinos and restaurants all over the place, that's one thing. Here you got one game in town. They got a kind of a buffet, which is really lousy. But if you've never been to a buffet anyplace else, in terms of casino buffets, which are outstanding, you'd say this is okay. Have you been to Las Vegas or Reno or Atlantic City, you probably wouldn't go to this place. But you see, it's so different in terms of they don't comp you in this casino very much because they don't have any reason to. There's no competition. If you want to play cards, or you want to play a slot machine, if you don't go to the Hard Rock, you don't go. And that's okay, too. I can afford my own meals. I don't need them for that. But there's a lesson there, very briefly. Guess who they comp like crazy? Send letters, come on down, slot machine players. The super profitable slot machine players get all kinds of deals for eating in that tragedy they call a buffet and whatever. But in any case, I went into the restaurant when we got there, and I said, very nice young lady there, boy, you got to have some kind of a body in order to work in that joint, because the costumes were not only revealing, which I can deal with, it's nice enough, but you really had to have some kind of a figure to fit into them. Nonetheless, and my wife made that comment, by the way, not me. I observed, I'm not stupid. But in any event, the girl said, well, I can get you in at 10 o'clock. Well, that's better than 10:45. It's now about 9:30. And so we went out, and I said, gave her my cell number. If we can get me in earlier, that's fine. Call me, and she did not. But 10 o'clock, well, we played a little 21, and 10 o'clock went to the restaurant. We're seated. Table was decent. A little noisy, but decent and so forth. And, of course, it's nice linen tablecloth and all the rest of that. And would you like still water, or would you like bottled water, or whatever? Can you handle tap water, or you want to pay $5? I can handle tap water, not a problem. Ordered an adult beverage for each of us, toasted to each. This has been a little trying time, and I think that's one of the reasons why Sue was very amenable to going because she doesn't really care for the casino. But this is a decent restaurant. That's why I chose that, because good restaurants are a little harder to find in our neighborhood than some others I've been in. Anyway, finally we decide to order, and we both had a salad. I mean, remember, this is a middle class place. Like a salad side is $11, soup is $10 or $12. I mean, everything is a la carte. Everything a la carte. So we decided to split. They had twin lobster tails, and we decided to split those because neither of us were that ravenous. Little spinach, $9, some potato, another $9, and of course the adult beverages and whatever. Oh, and we also asked that which is additional, some crab on top of the lobster tail. Okay, after an interminable period of time, the salad was excellent. Here comes the lobster tails. Well, they forgot to put the crab on one of them, so they gave the one with crab to Susan. The vegetables were certainly good, but they were ice cold. And the lobster tail was cold, and the drawn butter didn't have a heater underneath it. I don't care what you do, that stuff's going to get, cool. I'll be right back with your lobster. Well, she didn't get back. And I'm sitting there, and I said to the girl when she finally wandered past, I said, this lobster tail is okay, but it's ice cold. Well, finally, she took it back to the kitchen. It disappeared for a full 15 minutes. And she comes back with my lobster tail. And I said, the vegetables are ice cold. They were cold when they got here. Now they're frozen. And she got there with my crab meat, which is another $15 or something. And that was served in like a chafing dish, not browned off and stuffed on top of it. And I said, would you please get me the manager? And I chatted with the guy. He was very nice. He said, I'll talk to the chef. I said, well, I think you ought to have a serious talk. I mean, this is a restaurant where it's going to cost you $100 a head to get out of, which is okay. I knew that when I went in. I'm not getting any comp from the casino. That's just fine. But damn it, I would expect hot food in a nice restaurant. My point is, but the manager was very pleasant, and he removed some stuff from the check, which is certainly expected because I didn't need it. But the point is, in this day and age, when business is tough everywhere, how in the world can you afford to let your people behave this way? Somebody explain that to me. I'm Bruce Williams. By golly, a postscript, by the way, to my dinner story. The lobster tail looked really good, but twice heated and still cold, drawn butter, the rest of it. My wife is less fussy than I, less demanding, and I didn't argue, though I'm saying your stuff is just as cold as mine, and I don't see a reason to pay for any of this crap. But in any event, I went home and had a peanut butter sandwich. Well, that time of night. They had a food court out there someplace, but that wasn't what I wanted to eat. So I started out with a wonderful Caesar salad. I'm going to have lobster and the whole thing, and wound up with the wonderful Caesar salad, and a peanut butter on white. Portage, Indiana. Hello there.
Hi, Bruce.
Good evening.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I've always enjoyed your show, and I hate to see you go, but good luck.
Well, thank you so very much.
I had a question about investing. I was hoping to get a little bit of investing advice.
Well, let's try.
Okay, let's say you were 25 years old again.
Let's say that. What do you want me to have, fantasies? Go ahead.
Okay, if you went inside a time machine and you went back to being 25, how would you invest?
Well, how can I answer that question without some more variables? For example, what is my gender? I'm serious. This is all hypothetical. How much do I owe? Do I have a lot of heavy-duty student loans? Am I making important money, or am I working for a minimum wage at McDonald's? How reasonably intelligent am I? And that's not either a dumb or a question without relevancy. These are, and we're just getting started. You see where I'm going?
Right. So
you're talking about you?
Yeah.
You're bragging that you're 25, right? Okay, that's how I can deal with that.
Okay.
What else? Talk to me. Married, single?
Single.
Okay, that's a start. This is like pulling teeth out of a giraffe.
Okay.
lay the resume on me. Just, the fact sheet. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm single.
Education?
Yeah, I have a college degree, bachelor's degree.
Okay. Keep going. College debt? Come on.
No college debt.
All right. Savings?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is that kind of an answer? How much
10,
you got stashed?
10,000.
Okay. What do you earn a year?
50.
What do you do for a living?
High tech.
What is your tolerance for risk?
I'd say middle of the road.
That doesn't tell me a whole lot. All right. Do you see where I'm going? Now, what do you know about investing?
Enough to be dangerous.
Well, that's okay. That's maybe a condition. What you're telling me is you don't know very much. Is that correct?
Right.
You put 4 years in as an undergraduate to learn something about what you're doing for a living. Is that true?
Right.
All right. Well, it's not, you can't, as I think society anticipates you will, but you can't learn about investing or anything else worthwhile by osmosis.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to spend some time learning something. Does that make any sense whatever?
Yeah.
What do you read?
Mostly current events, history, things of that nature.
Well, all of that is all very well, and I do as well, but that's not going to help you very much with learning how to invest those hard-earned dollars, is it?
No.
All right, so you got to start reading stuff that has a bearing on it. I didn't say to the exclusion of the current events, because that does have a bearing on things too. But you got to start taking at least a glance at the financial section of your local newspaper. The Wall Street Journal does not come delivered in an attack mode. Which is not dangerous. You can afford to have it laying around in your house. It's worth reading.
Okay.
Forbes magazine, Money magazine. I didn't say read these things like you're reading a textbook for a test in school. But these are things you have to expose yourself to. So if I asked you for your 10 grand right now, lay it on the table, and I want you to give me a reasonably cogent description of buying and selling short and long, could you do it?
No, I couldn't.
Well, you see, you should be able to.
Mm-hmm.
So what have I told you?
To educate myself.
That's exactly right. You're a smart guy. You have the ability. It may not, the sports section may suffer a little, but I don't find that to be a huge loss in most of our lives. But and the best way is to start by reading, really. And from time to time, flip on CNBC or the Fox Business Channel. I don't want to plug anybody, the Fox Business Channel or whatever. You will find that there are terms that you will become familiar with. Your language, you said you're in IT, right?
Right.
Well, who the hell knows what IT is? I mean, I think I do, information technology, right?
Right.
But automatically now you are telling me, showing me, that there is a language of your industry. Is that not true?
True, yeah.
Well, there's also a language of every other industry of which I have ever been connected, whether it was selling ice cream off a truck or doing a program of this kind or whatever. There is a language, and in order to succeed in that industry, you really have to know the language, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not making it easy for you.
Right. Okay,
But
would you recommend...
that's not my
I'm sorry.
intention. I'm sorry?
Would you recommend buying individual stocks or investing index funds?
Well, first of all, I don't believe you could accurately tell me what an index fund is, can you?
It's probably not. I'll try. A broad overview of the market.
No, that's not true. An index fund is a relatively narrow overview of one industry or another, as contrasted with I guess you can buy one of the that would give you a broad overview. I'll stand corrected, but they also can be far narrower focused. But you got to know something about the industry. And the point is, if you're going to start calling your own shots, I don't know anybody that can take the entire view. In other words, what business are you in? You say, but what kind of a business does this company do?
Banking.
But okay, fine. Then do you not think that it might be wise to at least consider, although until right now it's in state of disarray, the banking industry in general? Because you're working with it every day. You're hearing stuff that I never hear. Is that not true? Hello?
Hello?
Is that not? Did you hear what I said?
No, I didn't. It's cut out for a second.
Okay, you're working in the banking industry every day. You're having conversations about buying and selling and borrowing and who the hell knows what. Well, would it not be then not a bad idea to focus at least on 3 or 4 industries, one of them being the banking industry? Another being pharmaceuticals. I'm not picking them for you, you understand? Mm-hmm. Automotive may be a third. And the list is entertainment and so on and so forth. And start reading about those industries.
Okay. Now, would college courses help in that regard?
If you can you said you're single. If you can go down to community college in the area and take a not for credit course, of course. Seminars that you can go to. Any way at all, picking up little snippets and bits of information. And 6 months, a year from now, you're going to be surprised how much you've picked up. If you just read the financial section of a halfway decent daily, religiously, you'd be amazed 6 months from now what you know that you don't know now. It's not a big deal. But you're working hard for your money. And not to have the cursory information, so if nothing else, you can communicate with a broker, talking his or her language. I don't know if any of this makes sense to you, but I'm telling you, it makes consummate sense in the overall picture. Nothing is for, if suddenly you hit the lottery for $100 million, I can assure you that the creme de la creme of the investment world will be very happy to talk to you. Mm-hmm. You work for a big bank?
No, local.
What, a community bank?
Yeah.
Well, that's the place to learn. I mean, I'm involved in one of those, and that's a good place to learn. Mm-hmm. And you will expand from there. But nobody's going to do it for you, kid. And I wish somebody gave me this lecture a couple of years ago. I'm Bruce Williams. Should you wish to join me, 877-287-4964. I want to respond to this email because there is a 12-hour, as I recall, time differential, something of that nature, 13 hours. It says, thanks, Bruce, for the many years of advice and entertainment. I called you a couple of times in the late 90s. In 2006, I moved to Singapore to teach at the university here. And last month, while tuning into KQV in my hometown of Pittsburgh over the net, I was pleasantly surprised to find your voice again. I listened to remind me of America, and I was saddened you'll be leaving the airwaves, but wish you luck in the future. And it's from Brad Freeman, who is a PhD type, teaching in Singapore. Brad, I really appreciate your note, and it's nice to know that people are listening all over the place. For a while, we were on a station in Singapore. Whether we still are or not, I really don't know. It's kind of hard to keep up with, and I guess it just becomes largely academic under any circumstance. But last November, what is this, March? November, December, it doesn't seem like that. Over 3 months ago, Susan and I visited in Singapore. We had a very pleasant, albeit brief, visit there. Very impressive airport. And I was also impressed in a community which is largely non-Christian, what an extravagant Christmas displays one filmed in Singapore. And my one vivid recollection, aside from the boat ride on the water there, was the Hindu temple with thousands and thousands and thousands of Buddhas in it, and I'm sure you know where that is. But Brad, thank you very much. It's nice to know we have people all over the world that will, because of the marvelous reaching of the Internet. There are a lot of things the Internet I find disagreeable and aggravating, but that's not one of them. I mean, today, when I was listening to a tape of my last show at WMCA, it came up through a wonderful piece of serendipity, and there I was chatting with Bert Knapp on the air, because you could do that sort of thing in local radio because you didn't have the time constraints that are placed on you in a network environment. And I had Beth pull it up, and Bert passed away in 1994, I think it says on here someplace. But Bert was a World War II type, Air Force, got the Heart, Distinguished Flying Cross, all sorts of stuff. He left WMCA in 86, and I think passed away in 87 or something of that nature. I hadn't thought about Bert for such a long time. But that's marvelous. In 2 minutes' time, Beth had the information. From that perspective, the Internet is a remarkable proposition. Saw an interesting article today, and it really didn't come to any conclusion about video games. I mean, there were differences of opinion of the people that made the study. Personally, I would be prejudiced, but it would be hard for me to believe that video games in some fashion don't encourage aggression. I mean, anything that has you in there trying to kill people has to make you a little bit aggressive. I mean, it's only a game, I understand all that, but a very realistic game in some cases. I mean, if you have one that stresses antisocial behavior, if you have one that stresses aggressive behavior against women for the sake of discussion, I have to believe that there's a certain degree of encouragement there. Of course, the people in the video game, it's just letting people work off their aggressions and so on and so forth. It's hard for me to share that point of view. After reading all of this stuff, nobody really had a good, solid handle on what it does or what it does not do. I cannot believe it's healthy to have people sitting there by the hour trying to kill people, particularly with the detail that's available in video stuff now. 877-287-4964. I'm Bruce Williams. We go to KQV country, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hello there.
Hello, Bruce. On behalf of all of us that you've educated over the years, I thank you very much.
Well, you're very, very kind.
Bruce, I called you a couple of years ago. I established and opened a couple of little diner concepts that serve breakfast and lunch only. We open at 6, close at 3. I'm able to put these things together for about $75,000 to $100,000 with used equipment in B and C centers where the rent's about 10% of our gross.
Hold it. What's a B and C center?
Well, a center that's not new construction where they're looking for a couple of tenants where they'll dicker with the rent or they'll make you some deals to get tenants in there. You know,
okay. You mean like B or C locations as contrasted with an A location?
Exactly.
Okay, I just didn't understand. That's okay. Go ahead.
I called you about it, and I told you I'd like to franchise this operation. This was after I had sold a few of them outright, and you had told me to open another one, get it up and get it going, and then look at licensing it or franchising it. I'm ready to do that, and I'm wondering what my next step should be. What do you think I should do?
Well, I can't tell you which way to go. I can tell you this, that franchising is a very effective but a very costly way to go, because you have to be licensed in each individual state to sell your franchise there.
What is the alternative? Licensing it?
Licensing.
How does that work? What is the difference?
Well, the difference really is if in a franchise you have very close control over what they're doing, and I don't want to get into the two. You got to be very careful here, but there are also some ancillary income from franchises in terms of material. Let's say hamburger in your case, for the sake of discussion. But licensing is a whole lot less expensive, or just licensing with a modest fee, but a halfway decent fee up front.
As a guy that's been around, and I know you know the Pittsburgh area a little bit, and you've been around the country, and you know the restaurant business a bit, it seems to me that there's so many hamburger joints and pizza joints and hot dog joints, but there's not too many bacon and eggs joints that are going up. And it seems every time you go in one, they're very, very busy. And I'm wondering if you think I've got a legitimate thing to try to expand upon.
Well, you're telling me that it's working. I've only remember, actually just a bacon and egg type place, I've only seen one in my whole life. And that was in Bloomfield, New Jersey.
And this was more of a diner?
I often wonder about limited concepts like you're describing. How you can, and we have a whole bunch in Florida where they serve breakfast and lunch and they go home at 2 or 3 o'clock. But they have everything, not just bacon and eggs. But how can you afford to close for one whole meal of 3 a day?
Well, you know, the simplicity of it is that you have one shift. You have the most...
Go ahead.
You have the most profitable meal with breakfast and lunch, and, you know, by 3 o'clock you're done and you're home for dinner.
Well, that's neat being home for dinner, but I've often wondered. I'm not, like Outback never opened for lunch. And I could never understand how you have a big full-service restaurant and close for lunch. And for years, McDonald's didn't serve breakfast. But these guys are all making money, and I certainly wish you very much success. I'm Bruce Williams. Radio. And how are you this evening? I hope it finds you well. I'm Bruce Williams. Welcome. Welcome to my world as we talk to you, with you, and about you, your life, your hopes, your ambitions, and from time to time. How about a dream or two, huh? The telephone number, same as always, 877-287-4964. 287-4964. Email askbruce at brucewilliams.com. If there's something coming down in your life you think we ought to be talking about, let's get it on. If there's something happening in the world you know we should be talking about, punch up the number and you'll be here. Charlotte, North Carolina. Welcome to my world.
Good evening, Bruce.
Good evening.
It's been a long time. It's been 19 years I've been listening to you, and I just want to say, first of all, thanks for the memories. I appreciate it. You've been like a father figure to me, and you got a voice that just has a calming effect on me. And I'm going to miss you.
Well, I
We all
appreciate
are.
that.
But, well, I tell you, let me start off real quick. Some years ago, probably about 16, 17 years ago, you told a guy on the phone, look in the mirror, ask whether or not there's a little boy or a man looking back at you. And that was the turning point in my life. When I listened to that, and I said, okay, well, it's time for me to quit running around being an idiot, start working, and, start doing something with myself. And, college degree and everything, I was still being irresponsible. So I did that, and I've worked pretty much everything. Got myself up to an executive position, a few years ago. Of course, got laid off, and again looked in that mirror, and now I'm driving a truck. But my family has to eat, so I do what I have to do.
And you look. I've said that many times, as I'm sure you know.
Right.
But it's true every time, and it doesn't go down so well with some people, and that is not at all hard to understand. But the fact is that you are the master of your own destiny. And you have to make a decision. Am I going to behave and act like a responsible adult, or am I going to continue to be a 40-year-old whiny kid?
Exactly.
Huh? You made the right decision.
I appreciate that, and thanks to you. But I'm trying to figure out, at my age, I just turned 45 back in November, and I'm obviously not going to stay driving a truck for the rest of my life. I'm used to having a little bit higher lifestyle, and I'm debating whether or not, okay, is it time to go back to school? Should I, maybe go look into some other type of schooling? I have one college degree, but, at my age, do you think going back to school for something would be advisable?
If you had a burning desire, for the sake of discussion, God knows the world doesn't need any more lawyers, but if you decided somewhere along the line that you have a burning desire to practice law, there's always room for one more. And the only way that you're going to be able to do that, well, you could read for it, I suppose, but you got to go back to school. But you're going back because you have a very specific something that you want to do, and that something is very important to you. And that's the price for the union ticket. I don't have a problem with that. On the other hand, just to go back and say, well, I'll get a master's degree, an MBA or something of that nature because it would probably help me, I would say no.
Right. So there has to be some sort of focus, something I have passion in, obviously.
That's a good word. That's right. If you want to get into this business, I would question why in today's world that might be an ambition, but there's really would be no sense in you going to a broadcast school at your age. Either you can do this stuff or you can't. You have enough money to buy a radio station and practice on the station you own. There's a lot of possibilities, but you see the distinction. It would be less than likely at 45 that you could go back to school and become an ophthalmologist. Mm-hmm. I mean, the world has passed you by in that regard. Surely has passed a lot of us by. So that would not be a realistic idea. You've always wanted to be a pilot. Well, go get a license. That's fun. But the chances of you at 45 or 46 build enough time to make a living at that enterprise is very, very slim.
Yeah, and actually I found that out because I actually have been an aviation nut for years. Just never, got into it. But yeah, you're right.
So those are things you got to be realistic about, is what it comes down to. There is no clearly defined answer to your question that I know of.
There has to be specific training, something that I have. I mean, I kind of, sort of, got back undercapitalized into the insurance business, which I did when I was much younger. Made a lot of money at it. I don't know why I went corporate, but
in what do you mean, having an agency?
No, I was a producer. I was
you worked for an agency then.
Right, exactly.
Okay, well, there's nothing to prevent you from starting to do that again.
Right.
I mean, getting a license is simple. Of course, there are most states, if not all, have certain restrictions. You got to put so many years in as an employee before you can have your own store.
I already got ended up getting the life and health license in North Carolina, so got that out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of hawking a little bit of health insurance nowadays, and of course, that's kind of tough.
Yeah, everything is tough.
Yeah.
And that suits me fine. If it wasn't tough, who the hell would need Bruce?
Wouldn't be worth it.
That's right.
Well, Bruce, listen, I tell you, it took me 19 years to call. I don't know why, but we're going to miss you. I kind of hope we can find you somewhere, whether it be email. I sure would like an opportunity to download all of your shows. I mean, back from the Nobody days up till now. If it was possible.
There's a bunch of ownership hurdles that would have to be overcome before we could do that.
That's true.
I'm going to take a month before I make any decisions about anything going forward. My website will be in action certainly for 6 months to a year under any circumstance. So I'll have a way to communicate, and you guys will have we'll have an email address, so you guys will have a way to communicate with me. And we will see what we shall see. I thank you so very much. Looking forward to that. You can take that right to Barclays. I am definitely looking forward to that. I see at Kennedy Airport, JFK, used to be called Idlewild in New York City. They have one of the longest runways in the world. You can just about drive to Paris on that runway. It's huge. And the Port of Authority, New York, New Jersey, recently announced that they are going to repair the runway. They're going to take up the asphalt and put some other kind of concrete in. I'm not sure. I mean, asphalt is asphaltic concrete. And I'm not sure what they're going to do, but it's going to take them 4 months. And I would imagine they'll work on that 24/7 once the ice and snow are out of the way. But just as predictably as the snow was going to come in the wintertime and the sun goes down in the west, the talking heads had their men and women on the street talking to the people out by JFK. And you know exactly what they're going to complain about and carry on about. Oh, my God, it's terrible to live with all these airplanes flying over and the noise. And they interviewed the noise chairman of the blankety-blank Property Owners Association and all that sort of stuff. And you really, at least you can't speak for you, but I really want to go out there and really shake these people, grab them by the lapels and say, what are you guys belly aching? I had a smaller word in mind, began with a B. What are you belly aching about? I know damn well that the airplanes were flying at JFK before every person I saw interviewed was born. And I'd be willing to gamble that 90% of those homes were built after were built before these people were born. They knew they were moving into a neighborhood that had proximity to a lot of aircraft. JFK has been out there, forever. But they move into the neighborhood, and then they bitch and bellyache about airplanes. Well, why did they move there to begin with? Well, a lot of them moved there to begin with because there was activity and jobs. And why do you suppose there was activity and jobs? Well, yeah, that's a real tough question to answer, isn't it? Because the airport was there, and it generated hundreds of millions of dollars of economic activity and thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs, direct and indirect. But just as sure as blazes, anytime there's an airport, there are people that live close by. I mean, they said, oh, there's 80 movements. And this one woman, she knew how many flights an hour and a day and the heavy flight times and so forth. And I felt reaching into the television, saying, lady, why don't you get the hell out? Why are you there now? And the answer, airplanes. And I just don't understand that. I've seen pictures of O'Hare Airport in the 40s. And there was nothing there. You know, a couple of runways. They had some training for the military there. And then there were, I think it wasn't at O'Hare, but close by. There was a military base where the bottom of Lake Michigan is still littered with airplanes that crashed during training programs in World War II. But there was, now you take a look at the overview of O'Hare Airport, one of the busiest in the country, and there's every which way you look. There's businesses and homes and whatever in the shadow of the airport. They didn't locate out by Freeport, Illinois or whatever. They located because that airport is there. And yet, we're back with the same thing. People constantly complaining about airplanes. Why are they there? Maybe you can answer. I'm Bruce Williams. 800-877-287-4964. I'd sure like to hear from you. Massapequa, New York. Hello there.
Hey, Bruce. How are you this evening?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you very much. What's up?
I wanted to call you. Well, I have a point about the airports, but I wanted to call you first. I just wanted to thank you because, believe it or not, I actually sat at that board and worked for you for a short time.
Did you really?
Yes, I did. I worked for you for about a year and a half doing the show. And I definitely learned a lot. So I was that college student that didn't believe, but then I learned a lot as I went on.
Whether you liked it or not, huh?
Well, yeah, but we had a lot of great nights in there, so I can't really complain.
I appreciate that. What's on your mind about... I figured when I saw Massapequa, you might have something to say about the airport.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up about a mile away from Kennedy Airport in Queens, and I don't know, I just was so desensitized, I guess, or used to the planes, it never bothered me. Like, I never had a second thought. Even if I was in the neighborhood, out of the neighborhood, I didn't really see a problem with the planes flying over.
Well, there are an awful lot of people, as I'm sure you will testify, didn't share your point of view.
No, but I mean, as a kid, you couldn't beat it if you were watching them fly over.
That's a whole other program, too.
But I really didn't see an issue. I mean, I'm further out east on the island away from the airport now, so it really doesn't affect me as much. But there really wasn't, any kind of problems that I remember ever growing up as far as having them coming over at a constant rate.
Well, every time they want to expand a runway or change a traffic pattern, you got the ants coming out of the woodwork saying, "Oh my God, it's my kids are going to be neutered," and they just go on and on about. And how can you not observe the reason that the development is as it is where you live is only because of one thing: that airport.
Constant travel, constant flow in and out, yeah.
All the money that it generates, whether you like it or whether you don't. I mean, that's another issue. I used to live in New Jersey, and Lord knows we needed another airport in that. I mean, you had Teterboro, but that's largely corporate stuff, and you had EWR. That was it, and they wanted to put a couple of other airports in, and you would think that you were talking about opening a leper colony when everybody believed that leprosy was transmitted by a sneeze, and now, a mile away. People would, and you'd talk to some of them, well, do you fly? Oh, yeah, I drive to Newark regularly. But you don't want it near you. Damn right, I don't want any airplanes near my part of Somerset County or whatever it would have been, the area where there's plenty of money.
Yeah, and usually you don't, that's the biggest problem. They all want to worry about that, but they don't come out and focus when it's about schools or taxes or other things. It's always the little things.
Well, they don't necessarily want to be identified with that. I had somebody call me today who may be listening now, and he'll get angry as hell. We disagree on a lot of things. I still love him, but we just disagree. And he was vehemently complaining that a new, it's not fast food, but a restaurant opened up on the major highway, which is adjacent to his house, but it's got to be a couple of miles away. It's not in his backyard.
Yeah.
And I don't think he sees the glow, maybe the sky glow of that highway. But according to him, this restaurant has these huge signs. And I said, well, why do you think that they located in that area? Because they have a bazillion cars and trucks going down the highway, and they want people to know where they are. And if you think signage isn't important, why do you think McDonald's goes through loops and groups to get their golden arches up? Because it identifies them. And, I have a business that's on a highway, and after it's been there 40 years, something like that. And by golly, if you take a sign down that's selling something we specialize in, people stop coming in.
Yeah, it's all about
I thought you're not doing that anymore. You got to be kidding me.
No, it's all about branding and imaging. That's where it's at.
And other people will walk through the door. Oh, I go past here every day. I didn't know you were here. Well, we've only been here since 1970.
Yeah, nobody just paid attention to the signs that were around.
That's exactly right.
Well,
so I'm sensitive to that, and he's all uptight because it makes the place look like Las Vegas. And I said, well, first of all, I don't think that's quite true. But secondly, who do you think's paying the taxes?
That's it. It's you. And I definitely, just before I go, I just want to thank you so much for making me a smarter person, because you did, for all the times I was there.
You are very, very
generous.
So
I wish you luck and everything in the future, and it was great for the time that I did spend with you in there.
Thank you, Guy. To be continued. Yeah, it's been fun spending as much time with so many of you and maybe helping influence you in some minor ways about some parts of your life and your point of view. I'm not out to change anybody's perspective. What I am out to change is being so myopic in the way you see things. There's so much opportunity in almost every single bad thing that it can happen in business and whatever. There may be an opportunity opening up, but you got to look at it from a different perspective. That's what this is all about. I'm Bruce Williams. 877-287-4964. There's 3 or 4, well, one of them is not so little a story. As a matter of fact, it's going to be even pursued a lot more. I don't have a problem. Now, I obviously, like a great many people, figure we know who did it, but absolutely no evidence to demonstrate that, except nobody in the world does it as well as they do. I'm talking about that Hamas arms dealer that got assassinated in Dubai. I think what they did was they gave him an inoculation to calm him down a little bit somehow, and then smothered him with a pillow. Now, this guy is the enemy. The enemy of the West. There's no question. He will be replaced. There's equally no question about that. But this is a guy that was smuggling weapons into the Gaza from Egypt, weapons that were going to kill people. He was in that business, and that's what he did. Hamas is a terrorist organization. You can take the point, and it would be valid that they were the victors in an election in the Gaza. That doesn't in any way it changed the fact that they're terrorists. They were out killing civilians and all that sort of stuff. Well, the fact is now they think the authorities in Dubai. And of course, what a different world with security cameras everywhere except the stall in the men's room. And frankly, you don't know if there's not a security camera there. They have all kinds of pictures of the suspects in this assassination. Went off like clockwork. 27, male and female, people were involved, in and out of Dubai and the Arab Emirates and whatever. 2 of them might have wound up in the United States, but they're probably not there anymore. Some on phony passports, and some on stolen Israeli passports, or identities, I guess, might be a more accurate representation. They got in. They knew where this sucker was going to be. They offed him, and they left as quietly as they came. Successful? Well, I don't know that you could argue with that. There are some people saying that assassination today is just not a useful tool. I don't necessarily share that point of view. I don't think the world is the least bit worse off having this crud meeting his maker, if that's possible. We'll see. But 27 people in and out. And I'm sure this has ticked the people in Dubai off. Why didn't you knock them off somewhere else? Well, maybe because this was the place he was most vulnerable. There are people in Dubai are arguing, well, he could have gone into Iran to make his deals, and maybe he could. But I am not one who is lamenting his leaving this Vale of Tears, Mohammed, whatever his name was. And I would congratulate whoever did it. Is it possible it was the Mossad? I hope so. I'm just very happy whoever did it and got it done. May your tribe increase. Grand Island, Nebraska. Hello there.
Good evening, Bruce.
Good
I
evening.
guess I've got a question. As far as renting a car, my current insurance that I use, I guess, every day in my car doesn't have any adder for renting. Now, I guess my curiosity is I've got a slip here from the last car I rented, and I'm not even sure what in the world all these other additional insurances you can get.
Let's forget them for just a moment.
Okay.
The thing is, when you rent a car from one of the major companies, I can't speak carte blanche because, there's going to be exceptions, right?
Okay.
But generally speaking, they carry the very minimum insurance that the state requires.
Okay.
On you. They, got millions and millions on them, but only the minimum on you.
Okay.
Now, you have an option of either have a DOC on your policy, which you should have, and if you have a regular non-business, there shouldn't be any surcharge for it. I don't know why you wouldn't have it, but I'd sure as hell ask. Drive other car, which means that your insurance kind of, is one way to put it, goes with your driver's license.
Okay.
But assuming that you do not have that, then by all means you got to buy the extra insurance, the extra liability insurance, because you're driving around naked otherwise.
Okay.
Now, the rest of all that garbage, most of it, is the sort of thing that the agent wants to sell because he or she gets a commission.
Mm-hmm.
The one that really gets interesting, and legally I'd be interested in hearing a couple of attorneys going at it from a different point of view, but that is the loss of the automobile's use in the event that it's in an accident. In other words, they tell you, if you wreck the car, we expect you to pay us, $100 a day for 10 years till we get the car fixed.
Yeah.
And that might be a little more difficult to collect. And then they got to prove that it's your fault and all that. There's a whole bunch of things there. But that would also be covered by your own automobile. And, of course, the rental companies make preposterous claims on the amount of income that's been lost and so on and so forth. Also, collision oftentimes is covered gratuitously by your credit card company if you use them to rent the car.
Okay.
But you got to ask.
Okay.
But I'd want to drive other cars. I mean, why wouldn't you have that?
Well, I'll have to call and see. I may have it, but I I rent one very infrequently, and usually it's through the company, and the company, they usually tell me not to bother with any of the insurance.
Well, I mean, that's all very well, but who's renting it, you or the company?
Well, I see my name's on the dotted line, I guess.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And if you don't have, how much liability insurance do you have on your car?
I believe it's $250, I think. $250,000. I'd have to look. I'd have to pull my slip out.
Well, you're naked.
Not even sure.
You're absolutely naked. You don't have anywhere near enough insurance.
Okay.
You should have at least $3 or $4 million.
$3 or $4 million. Okay.
And you can accomplish that with an umbrella policy, which dovetails with your primary coverage and also goes with you when you rent a car. Now, you say you don't rent it very often, but it only takes one hit to disrupt your life rather materially.
Yeah. Well, I thank you, Bruce, and I sure hate to hear you leaving the radio waves, but good luck to you in the future.
Well, thank you very much. We're kind of looking forward to the unknown, because one thing that I do know is that I'm not going to retire as such. I fear that. I mean, that's my shortcoming. But I've been a worker bee all my life, and I enjoy working, and I'm going to continue to, whether it will be in the entertainment business or, we are in other businesses already. But I have to believe I'm going to try to get into something else. But I don't know what that'll be, and I've imposed a 1 month. Don't make any decisions. I don't want to make a decision in haste and regret it in leisure. So I'm not going to make any material decisions till after I get back from our cruise, and that'll be in a month. Our telephone number 877-287-4964. I got time for this. This is a short thing, but I sure think California is going to, they have a law in the works now, to punish silent witnesses, and I think it's a good idea. What am I talking about? Well, they had one case, and this is not only in California. This is a recent one where like 20 people watched a 16-year-old girl get raped, gang raped. Nobody called 911. Now, you could make some speculation about the makeup of that audience. Of course, there's always going to be, if you make a phone call, you're liable to be nailed by the gang who's doing this, and yada, yada, and the famous line, I don't want to get involved. Well, about time you got involved. Now, I'm not saying you got to go race out there and start beating on the guys raping the girl, but I don't believe it's such a big deal to call 911 on those. I'll bet of those 20 people, 10 of them, 15 of them had cell phones in their pockets or purses. All you have to do is call up and say, there's a girl being raped, and pop, 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 pop. Well, now they're going to start putting you in jail if you don't make the call, and I say, hallelujah. I'm Bruce Wayne. If you'd like to give us a yell, we're going to be here for a few more minutes. Let's do it. Tacoma, Washington. Hello there.
Okay. I'm sad to hear you leaving too. But so we got one more. Friday's going to be your last day?
Friday will be the finish. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Anyway, I'm going to miss you because you're one of my favorite talk shows, and you're at least I can get through and talk to you. Even some of these talk shows up around Seattle and stuff, I call in, they put you on hold for half hour, 45 minutes, and then they go, we're going to another topic after this. I'm sorry, we couldn't get you on. Or a lot of times they don't even tell you they can't get you on. You're waiting on hold for half hour, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and then they always want to switch topics at the top of the hour or something.
Well, everybody has their own style.
I know. But anyway, I was just going to say something about, to try to keep us informed if you decide to, do some little, maybe like a news thing or, a thing on the radio or anything else that, I don't know, it's just, maybe you never know, you don't know what you're going to do after you quit this.
I surely do not know.
Are you going to get more involved in your flower business or some other?
No, that will not happen.
No.
That
But anyway,
I've had that for over 40. Let me see, 70, for over 40 years.
and do you just have the one store? Is that in New Jersey?
Yeah, we just have one now. We did have several.
Yeah.
We still have a wholesale business as well.
Yeah. Well, that's good luck to you on your future endeavors and everything, and I hope we hear from you again. Hopefully before you fade into the future.
Be careful.
No, but I mean, I'm sure
No,
you got a lot
we are
more
going to
years.
keep our website up.
I just want to have one more comment. I'm sure you got a lot more years than you.
Take your time.
And,
Go ahead.
well, I don't know. You may have heard about this. I don't know if it went national or not, but there was a beating up in Seattle in the about a week or a week and a half ago in the tunnel where the street goes through this tunnel and near the waterfront in Seattle. Well, there was 3 security guards that were. It's near the bus, the light rail bus thing that goes around Seattle, and there was near the bus station where the light rail thing stops. Anyway, there was 3. This was all caught on videotape, which was really good. There was 3 security guards that were employed and paid for by the Seattle King County Transit Company, and 2 young teenage girls were fighting, and the one girl got knocked down, and she was laying on the ground, and this other girl, they were probably in their 15 to 18 year range, both of them were, and the one girl was kicking the other girl in the head while she was laying down. These security guards just stood around and did nothing. And I mean, it's been on the talk radio around here in Seattle, Tacoma, and around for the last week or so. And the bus company, they've changed their policy due to a lot of criticism and seeing what all this. Anyway, this girl had to go to the hospital. She was okay, but you know, anyway, they were both of these girls had been in detention and were both not the best, and both had bad records, and both had weren't the best of.
No, I understand. Whether there was lack of parental influence doesn't really matter. If they had a teenage record, they had a teenage record. The whole business of people standing around and I don't want to get involved, or the company would say don't get involved because.
Let me make one more. That's what the company policy for this security company was. These guards, they were paid to be security guards for the bus company in Seattle there, and around the bus station and in this tunnel and stuff, and the security. That's what their contract said, that they were not supposed to, get physically involved, even if there was a fight or anything. They were just supposed to observe and then maybe call 911, and I guess they didn't call 911 right away, but I guess after a while, because there was police around there earlier, because there was a fight previous to this fight, and anyway, now they have regular Seattle police officers patrolling that area.
Well, the whole business of the companies. The companies are gun shy because that if something does happen and one of their employees gets involved, immediately there are going to be lawyers out there and people that are going to say, well, they're the ones we're going after because they got the deep pockets.
Right.
They got money, so we're going to sue them. This business of they have Good Samaritan laws, and yet still, even with the Good Samaritan laws, there is some wiggle room, where if a physician or a nurse or other practitioner happens on an accident and jumps in and is going to help out, and it is alleged that they didn't do something or did do something, either neglected to do something, then you have some guy, that maybe even the victim, suing them.
One more quick question. Because
they didn't do what somebody else in hindsight says they should have done. Yes, go ahead, real quick.
Why isn't the pork roll stuff available, like frozen or anything, or anywhere outside of the Far East Coast?
That's a good question. Well, first of all, it is available, for example, in Florida, which is the East Coast revisited. Let's start with that, all right? But beyond that, which most people don't know, if you want to get your product into the supermarkets, you got to pay them for carrying your product. Did you know that?
You mean like pay Safeway or Fred Meyer? Or...
That's right. You got to pay them to get the stuff on the shelf over and above the profit they make on the product. And as a consequence, there are many fine products out there whose manufacturers cannot or will not pay for shelf space. And that's why you don't find them in the stores. You hear me doing a commercial now for Motion Ease. It's a wonderful product. It really is. But many of the chain drugstores say, yeah, well, you got to give us millions of dollars for us to do you the privilege of selling your product so we can make a profit. Well, a lot of smaller companies simply will never be able to get in those stores. I'm Bruce Williams. Well, we've had a pleasant get-together. I hope you've enjoyed it. I most surely have. The countdown clock is clicking away. That leaves us with 12 hours in this little endeavor. Thank you so much for making that possible. My warm thanks to Zach and Bill making this thing click in the studios, and you guys on the party line. You've been so extremely gracious. I'm Bruce Williams. God bless the United States of America.